Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alhamdulillah. You okay?
Good, alhamdulillah, yourself?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Let's give it a few more minutes and then
Okay.
inshallah we can begin. Uh, 5 past now, so I think we might as well start. We've got a few on YouTube as well, so I'm sure we'll pick up.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. وبعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters who've joined. I pray that you had a wonderful week, even though we're in lockdown. Or this lockdown is not as it's not like before. There's still some normality, even though the virus still is spreading. People are, subhanallah, dying. We still have to be cautious. We still have to be mindful of what we do and how we do it. Maintain the social distancing, maintain all the different government guidelines, the medical expertise guidelines to protect ourselves and protect our families and other people. Also, last week we had a different session. We had talked about the golden rule, what they say, the golden rule, and that golden rule applies to engaging with other people, people from other faiths, and right. And the basic golden rule that Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and all other faiths and none, they, at least in theory, they agree to is that do unto others what you would want others to you. Right? Treat others the same way you would want others to treat you. Treat others and behave with others, engage with others the same way others would, same way you would want others to engage with you, treat you, and behave with you. And that requires empathy, that requires compassion, that requires mercy, that requires a real careful, careful thought. And this also, I want to today, expand on that and touch up on it, how we engage with one another. I know I've discussed this, a number of times, but I want to come from a very different angle, right? And make two fundamental points. And what is happening outside, what is happening in the wider society, and also within the Muslim community. And the first point relates to language, the narrative that we propagate and promote, the language that we use. It's no wonder that the Quran or the Arabic language, and the Quran is the miracle of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You see, all of the other prophets, Jesus peace be upon him, his miracle was that he could cure people, because that was the norm of that time. Because there were a lot of magicians and people claiming to cure people, claiming to do certain things. So Allah sent Jesus peace be upon him with that miracle, right, to demonstrate that he can do that, but he can do more than that, right, by the will and power of God Almighty, right? And Musa alayhi salam was sent with a specific miracle. All the different other prophets, like in time of certain prophets, they were given the miracle of economics and finance, right? Because at that time, they people would abuse finance. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his miracle, right, was the Quran, or is the Quran. And the language is a big part of that, right? The way we speak, the way Allah communicates to us, the way we communicate. If you look at the way the Prophet ﷺ communicated with the companions, with even his enemies, the approach was one of empathy. The approach was one of compassion, rahmah, and mercy. And talking about language, if you look at, and this applies to generally Muslim, but also applies to in particular, people who are leaders of the mosques, leaders of organizations, who are part of a mosque committee. And if you look at what happened in France, look at what happened, what happens now and then. And since 20 years ago, 9/11 probably, a lot of idiots from the Muslim community, they're carrying out atrocities, right, killing and murdering, which is obviously totally against Islam. From that time, what happened was that Muslims and the Muslim organizations, they began to condemn. Now, condemning, right, is important, meaning that if someone has done wrong, we don't agree with that person, right? But what happened and what is happening is that by us collectively condemning the acts of vigilantes and idiots and extremists, we have taken the blame and put a collective guilt and blame on our collective shoulders. So what non-Muslims and many Islamophobes and many other Islamophobes, what they see is that there is a problem with Islam. There is a problem collectively with Muslims, and because we've facilitated that, because every time as a nutter does something, the media or the politicians or anyone say, what do you say? What do you say on this? What do you say on the matter? Do you condemn it? Right? Do you condemn it? Implicit in that questioning is the assumption that you agree with the attack, you agree with that violence, you agree with that vigilante actions. You see, it's a very subtle, profound psychological attempt. Whereas if you look at, when a white person or a Christian does something, Anders Breivik in Sweden or something, he was a Christian, a white Christian, and he killed 52 people. The media, politician, others, they did not go to white people or Christians and say, do you condemn it? Of course they condemn it, right? Because they don't agree with that vigilante violence, right? But no one, the different groups and media, they don't go to the church leaders, they don't go to the Jewish leaders, they don't go to the Hindu leaders, they don't go or the community and say that, do you condemn it? Meaning, if you don't condemn it, you agree with it. And if you condemn, if you condemn it, that means there is a problem with Islam, there's a problem with Muslims. You see how profound and powerful that is. And we've been doing that as a Muslim community for last 20, 30 years. Now, and some Muslim organizations, they've done it with the assumption, with the belief that if we condemn it, then we can separate us from the lunatics. That's the intention, right? The intention may have been sound, but it was wrong. It was wrong because the situation has gotten worse. It hasn't stopped the lunatics, and it hasn't stopped the Islamophobia. In fact, Islamophobia has increased 100% or 1,000%. So the what we say and how we say it, and our engagement and actions and the language that we use, right, is it can benefit us or it can harm us. In this instance, it has harmed us profoundly. We don't, as I said, we don't see the media and other people going towards, look what happened in New Zealand. New Zealand, over 50 Muslims were murdered, right? It's terrorists, right? Murdered, massacred, right? The media, they did not call him a terrorist. They called him they use it's a lone wolf, lone attack. Whereas if a Muslim does it, it's not a lone wolf. There must be a underlying philosophy and theology and creed behind it that all Muslims agree to. You see, but when he does it, everyone, the whole media from UK, from France to Europe to America, Australia, right? This person has mental. They use those words. This person has mental health issues. When it comes to a Muslim, no, he's sane, but there's no mental health issues. He's not a lone wolf. But when it comes to a white person or non-Muslim, it's always a lone wolf, basically deflecting blame. But when it comes to, and this happened, by the way, and the other point which relates to that. It's important for mosque and organizations to understand that is that whenever these things happen, the way we take blame, collective guilt and blame, that when we say, oh, Islam is all about peace and love and reconciliation and whatnot. Of course it is. The core teaching of Islam is mercy and compassion. The fundamental teaching of Islam, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. That we have not sent your Prophet Muhammad except as a mercy for the mankind. But when we go out, some Muslim groups, they go on Tower Bridge and they have flowers, and Islam is about love and peace. What psychologically what that does in the wider society is that, hang on a minute, they have to say Islam is about love and peace, right? That means in theory, in principle, Islam is not about love and peace, because there has to be someone or some people who need to clarify that. Whereas when it comes to others, this does not happen, right? So and it's about when bullies attacking the victim, and this rhetoric happened in many places, many parts of the world. And we talked about we had a reminder about our black brothers and sisters being attacked, right? And how the media and other politicians and others they respond. Look at in America, what happened? Hundreds of years of slavery, right? Even now, even though slavery is not there, formally, people are enslaved, right? The George Floyd, why was he murdered? Why was he killed? By the very same institution, people who were supposed to protect the citizens. He was killed by a police officer, right? Now you can say he's alone. No, it's institutional, right? But these things still happen. So the other point is that when a black or Muslim or any other minority lone wolf carries out a silly and violent and idiotic attack, right? The language is used, the media and police and authorities and people of power is all about justice. We have to seek justice. Yeah, this person has carried out. You Muslims, it's your fault. Islam is the fault. Your religion is the fault. You have to admit to it. You have to own it up. And there's a problem in your community. So we have to seek justice, and we have to have draconian policies, and we have to condemn it, and we have to subdue it, because it's a lion waiting to roar. And if we don't tranquilize it, it's going to kill all of us. That's the attitude. It's all about justice, fairness, justice. Put the full ironclad of law upon that person, upon that community. But when it came to the black community in America, when it came to reconciliation, right, it was all about peace and love, man. Yeah, they done, those people, they done wrong. What can you do? But that's peace and love and war. Peace and love and reconciliation. Not talk about justice. Not talk about fairness. Not talk about what people are still who are being imprisoned without without justice. There's no talk about that. The same thing happened, and this is bullying tactics. This is the language narrative. Right? We have to be very, very careful. Same thing happened in South Africa, right? The apartheid regime. South Africa has hundreds of years of slavery, right, and hundreds of years of long period of apartheid, where blacks and white could not mix. That blacks were seen as inferior, were seen as subhuman, seen as animals. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? Now, when the apartheid ended, is the discussion was about reconciliation, love, and peace. Reconciliation. There was no discussion about, yes, there were sporadic discussion about justice, but formally in an institution manner, there was no talk about justice. What those people have done, right? They did not pay for the crimes that they committed, right? Same thing happening in the UK and the Middle East and elsewhere. It's like, I give you a basic example, right? A bully, I go to a school, is a clear bully, and the bully is bullying me, taking my money and whatnot. I haven't done anything wrong. But it's a bully, right? It's a bully, right? Now, a third person wants to kind of mediate. The third person comes and says, "Oh, well, you probably had something. You probably should have done something differently. Why would he bully you?" Right? It's internalizing the blame, right? Whereas that person should said no, bullying is wrong. You are the wrong person. And you will be expelled from the school. That's justice. You have to pay the price. Whereas in the narrative that we live in, both the bully and the victim they pay the price. And in fact, in our narrative, right, in our world, in context, the victim paid the price, not the bully. Right? It's like people are blaming the rape victim and not the rapist. Right, and same thing happening. So with that, the way people condemn the Muslim organization, yes, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure. But if we keep on doing that, and the language that we use, right, it has led to more Islamophobia, more draconian policy. So most leaders and generally Muslims, we have to be very, very careful. We have to be very, very mindful of how language is used. You have to study it, but to read, to study. There's a lot of books and materials out there on this. We have to study and read, because if we can't, then how are we going to engage with others in a principled manner? How are we going to engage with others in a principled manner? The other point that relates to, right, our day-to-day dealings and the language that we use. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was the most eloquent of people. The best words that he used, right, with the companions, made them feel loved and made them feel valued. Now, even the small things, right? Even the small thing. I know it's very difficult in a day-to-day kind of interaction. It's extremely difficult, right? But it's important to remind ourselves so we can be mindful, right? The way we use the word and, why, how, and but in a sentence, in a conversation, right? And more than often, right, when we are talking to each other, right, we don't notice these small words and how they impact the other person, or how they impact what you say and how they perceive what you say, and this becomes convoluted online more. Day-to-day interaction is very, very difficult, but online it becomes more convoluted, right? So even a slight change in our choice of words can make a big difference in how we articulate how we express ourselves, and how the other person, the addressee, perceives and understands what we mean and what we say, right? So as an example, yeah. Say, for example, when someone is having a really hard time, going through a lot of problems, massive problems, right? Difficult times, and it could be anything, right? And yet that person still comes to you, and that person comes to you for support and nasiha, to give support and nasiha, right? And all the time, what we say, we often express our amazement, and we express the courage that the person displays when that person comes, despite the difficulty and challenges. Sometimes we might say something like, for example, wow, you have all that going on with you. We say, wow, amazing. You have all that going on with you, but you still managed to get here. Well done. See here the but, right? Let me say it again, right? Someone comes to you, right? Is despondent, difficult, challenging. He or she wants your support and nasiha, right? And you say, wow, right? Amazing. You have all that going on with you, but you still managed to get here. Very well, well done. What using but here, using the word but here, what that can mean to a person, right? Meaning that what they may hear from you, right, is your problems are not so great that they stop you coming. When you say but, that your problems are not so great, right? But you came still. So that means your problems are not so great. You are able to come, right? It sounds as though you are belittling or negating the problems that the other person is experiencing, or the effort and the courage and the bravery that the person, right, conjured up to get to you, to approach you and seek your help, right? And if you listen to when a sentence, in that word, right? So if you look at, for example, wow, you have all that going on, but you still managed to get here. Well done. As opposed to if you use the word and in that sentence, for example, right? Say, wow, you have all that going on, and you still managed to get here. You see, right? Wow, you have all that going on, all the difficulties that are going on, and you still managed to get here. Well done. And this is a much more, it's a positive response that acknowledges what it took for the person to come to you. You see the difference, right? It's very subtle. We hardly notice it, but if we're more mindful of that in our interaction, then it might, create more empathy and compassion and love between us, right? Let's use another word, for example, the word how and why. The words how and why, depending on the way you say it and the way you say it in the context, can have profound different meanings. Yeah, right. So, for example, why, when you ask a person why questions, it can pose a number of different challenges. Or as opposed to when you say how, right? How is like, these are genuine inquiries, right? Genuine inquiries. For example, right? As a general example, right? Someone comes who's got, as a therapist, I deal with people who have alcohol issues, we have drug issues, we have, so many different issues, right? So a person who has those issues, they come and you say to them, right? Why do you think, right? Why do you think getting off alcohol is going to be good for you? Why do you think getting off alcohol is going to be good for you? As opposed to using the word how, right? In the sentence, how do you think getting off alcohol is going to be good for you? How do you think getting off alcohol is going to be good for you, right? When you use the second sentence, this how, right? A lot of possibilities open up for the other person. So that person can describe their strengths, then describe their resources and the power and the ability, the capacity that they have, and the steps that they have taken, the courage and the bravery and the steps that they have taken for them to come to you. Because it's very, very difficult for someone to admit that they have a problem, right? You see the difference. Why did you do that? As opposed to how did you do that, right? How or how come, it seems a lot better than why, right? Although, when we speak, it's very, very difficult, right? We don't notice those nuances, the small nuances, but these small nuances right, are extremely, difficult skills to master, right, definitely in our daily life. But because our lives are all about buts and whys. But why did you do this? But why did you do this, right? But when we want to engage and show empathy with another person, right, and when we notice how we are using the words and the language they use, it can have very profound impact in our psyche, right? So the point today was really about language, how we approach language. Language is very, very key. That is why it's important for children to learn how to speak. They say that, psychologists say that one of the reasons a lot of people are successful, those people who are successful, whether it be materially or otherwise, one of the reasons because they're able to communicate effectively, right? They're able to communicate in a purposeful manner. They're able to speak, they're articulate, they're able to convey what they mean in a very articulate manner, right? And hence people follow them, they listen to them, and they become successful in whatever the capacity that they want to be successful in. Whereas those people who are not able to articulate, but again, articulation is not just about speech, but it can be in writing also. Everyone has the ability to articulate, whether in speech or writing or action. Yeah. So, this is a whole, this is a long topic, but I thought it's important for us to really understand those issues. Yeah. Inshallah, we'll stop here for 5 minutes and we'll take some questions, inshallah.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. That was very good. Let's see if there's any questions on YouTube as well. Bear with me. Nothing yet, but we'll give it a minute or so. We've got a question on YouTube from Atia Azmi. Have you read the book I Refuse to Condemn?
I haven't actually, but I know about the book, and I encourage people to read the book. It's a book, as far as I know, compiled, authored by different contributors from different backgrounds, Muslims and also non-Muslims, who've studied this and also experientially they understand this. So I highly recommend and encourage people, and this book really is actually, I mean, the topic that I discussed today, they actually expand on this. Now my wife describes me as a pathological reader. I love to read. Anything I can get my hands on, I read, right? I've got probably about hundreds of books just on my phone on PDF, different topic. My area of focus is psychology and counseling, so my time is preoccupied in reading that. But this book also coming, there is a chapter actually written by Dr. Tariq Yunus. He's a clinical psychologist, and he talks about from a psychological perspective. So I'm sure that will be really, really beneficial. So yeah, I've not ordered it yet. It's just personally, I've got so many other things to read, but I do recommend it. I will read it, inshallah. Recommend people to read it. There are other books that have been written before on these topics. So, but read. Reading is so powerful. Reading anything you can. Obviously, you don't read garbage, right? yeah, you know, you can read as long as you are able to differentiate good from the bad, right? But read, read, and read, and read with a teacher, right? Don't just read on your own, right? If you don't understand something, ask people. Read, read. So I know I'm not an expert in many areas, right? On these areas, I know brothers and I consult them. For materials, and I consult them. Even though, as I said, I I read a lot, right? I'm a pathological reader, right? To the point that sometimes I get headaches, right? It is not to show up, brothers and sisters. We have to read. We're ummah of read. The first the first word in the Quran that was revealed was Iqra. Subhanallah. I mentioned this many other times in my khutbahs, that Iqra means to read, to recite, to learn, right? To convey also, right? To recite. If in the Arabic, language is so powerful, language is so important. Teach your children language, whatever language, right? It doesn't have to be, yeah, English is must, right? And this is really important, right? We have to, from a young age, teach our children how to speak, how to write, how to articulate. Very, very important, right? Arabic also is a must, but any language, right? There's an Arabic poem, I can't remember, talks, encourages, it's really nice. If I remember, I'll mention it, right? I'll mention it, inshallah, another time if I remember it. It's in my head, back of my head, but it's not coming to my head, to my lip now. So read. The word Iqra, if you turn it around, like, right, like the word raqa, riq. Riq means slavery, right? Riqqa, right? It means slavery. The implication is that a person does not read and gain knowledge, that person is slave to other people. That person is enslaved by the opinions and the views of other people. Right? If a person reads, reading is freedom in Islam. Reading sets you free. Learning sets you free. Does that mean, by the way, that we don't have teachers and stuff? We don't certain areas we might not be an expert. We have to do taqleed of others, right? It doesn't mean you become scholar. If you're not expert in that, you can't give fatwa and become a scholar. Everyone has a speciality. So as I said, my speciality is certain areas. I constantly read about that area. Fiqh and usul and Islam and psychology and counseling. These are, but within the Sharia, I have certain specialities, or expertise, I can say. I read constantly, right? And I can say I have a good grasp of it, although I'm still reading and learning and asking people, right? But other areas, I do taqleed of other people I trust, right? But read and read and read, brothers and sisters. I can't emphasize how important learning and reading is. Unfortunately, we are ummah of Iqra. We are ummah of Iqra. The Prophet ﷺ was an ummah. He brought the Quran, and the Quran, the first word is Iqra, read. And when the Muslims, they heard that, the Muslims at that time, they became pioneers in science, pioneers in religion, pioneers in technology, pioneers in medicine. While Europe were in the dark ages, when Europe were going behind the bushes and defecating, we had toilets, for God's sake. We had soap, right? We had soap. And a side note, if you look at, the lawyers, they wear their wig. And I read somewhere that, because they did not, in Europe, they did not have soap, they didn't have shampoo, right? Because their hair would get fuzzy and messed up. They would wear wigs. Whereas in that time, and centuries before, we had soap, for God's sake, in Spain. The Muslims invented that, right? Yes, the 101 inventions. Why? Because we took our religion seriously. We understood our religion, not culturally. We understood our religion from the Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We invented, forget about the Wright brothers inventing flying. It was Ibn Firnas who invented flying. The glasses, right? Chemistry, all of these great. We sowed the seed. If you read the history of Spain, why did non-Muslims go to Spain and learn? Because they had agriculture, they had a sewage system. Whereas in England, right, people would, defecate in the bushes and in the roads and whatnot. But they had an intricate sewage system in Spain. Muslims came up with that, right? Yes, they accumulated the knowledge from other civilizations, but it was because they understood the religion. It is because they understood Iqra. Now, in the UK, for example, we're the most illiterate people, not just in the secular sciences, but even in our religion. And if you continue to be like that, we cannot be productive members of this world, members of the society, if we only become consumers. We have to become producers of knowledge, not just consumers of knowledge. Yes, consume knowledge from the right people, right? Because anything beneficial Islamic is good, but we have to be also producers of knowledge, and that production of knowledge, right? That production of knowledge has to come from our understanding of our religion, yeah, understanding of our faith. Hope that makes sense, inshallah.
Sheikh, thank you so much for that detailed answers. I don't know if you're already reading the other questions. I partially think you have answered them, but in case you haven't, I will.
Okay,
I will say them. So first one, mashallah, Sheikh, you're an inspiration. I need to read more, but I find it difficult to find the time. Any suggestion to motivate yourself and read more? And on the back of that, I'm just going to say the other one. Can you recommend a few books as well? Because I think they're intertwined.
Okay, inshallah. In terms of but everyone, obviously, look, everyone's situation is different. Everyone's situation is different, and there are so many. Like there's so like we live in a time where information can be obtained in your fingertips, touch of your finger, with your finger. Just press a button, that's it, right? As I said, in my phone, right? There's no space anymore in the house to buy books. There's no, right? So in my phone, in my Google Drive and stuff, I have hundreds of books. In my phone, I have about, at the moment, probably about 100 or 200. I read and read and read and read. No, I don't only read once, but I read over and over again. And you have to choose the area that you want to specialize in, right? And you just focus on that, right? And there are other books that you have to read, you should read. Like I refuse to condemn because this concerns us living in the UK as a community and how we approach things. Yeah. So your own time to make a decision for yourself that you will make time, right? 1 hour, a day. It can be done, right? Before you go to sleep, read the Quran, read tafsir, read hadith, right? There are some people who are more visual, learners, right? There are now on YouTube, or you can buy on Amazon, right? There are books upon books upon books on audio. There are books on audio that you just, upload it on your phone or whatever device you have, put your earphone on, and you just listen. That's also possible. There are courses, there are YouTube tutorials, right, on YouTube free that are based on a particular book that you can learn from. Yeah. So you have to, obviously, it takes discipline. It takes discipline, right? But if you overcome that first hurdle, right, or procrastination, you can do it, right? People, if you look at all these different billionaires or successful people, right? One of the characteristics that they have is that they read. All of them, they read, right? At least a book a week, right? Or at least they read something, right? So, if we want to achieve, greatness for ourselves and for the people, we have to make time for ourselves. As I said, there are different platforms, there are different avenues that you can take. Yeah, listening to audio books, reading, or even attending courses that are based on a certain topic or books that will ensure that you have also understood and read that book. Hope to answer the question.
Mashallah, Sheikh. Thank you very much. That was a very in-depth answer. I think another one's just popped up. Yep, sorry, someone just said you're right. I listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks. I guess that is a form of reading. Thank you.
It's and also even speaking, like on what, or discussing on WhatsApp groups, right? We utilize WhatsApp and Facebook. People I see, again, I don't want to appear to be someone who's moaning, complaining, but sometimes I see, brothers and sisters, they spend time on discussions and posting stuff which are just so irrelevant, right? It's unbelievable. But adults are talking about and mentioning on Facebook, wasting their time on things that are so irrelevant. Like, I went to a cafe and had a donut. Okay, you did, but why do I care? Right? And then a whole discussion ensues from that. A debate and discussion ensues from that, right? And which are not relevant, is fruitless. But yeah, utilize Facebook, utilize WhatsApp and stuff, to discuss with others. How did you find that book, and what was your summaries? And I always, when people say I read that book, I always say to them, summarize it. And some people get annoyed because I put them on the spot, but it's always good to be inquisitive, right? So always find avenues, find time to read, right? And when you have in a pool, when you have that information, you're able to, you're able to lead others. You're able to have a constructive and positive engagement and discussion and debate with others. Otherwise, anyone can say anything, and you have to take what they say. You have to believe it. Yeah.
Thank you, Sheikh. I think that's it for today. But that was, Marshall, that was really, really good. Anyone got any? I think that's it then. Jazakallah khair, everyone. And inshallah, see you guys next week.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.